The revolution is here.
Because you know what time it is? I want y'all to be after me. It's time for a revolution. It's time for a revolution.
No matter who wins the election in November, the far left has declared its intentions. The abolition of the United States as we know it.
I'm an Afro-Indigenous, non-binary local organizer here in Portland, organizing for the abolition of not just the militarized police state, but also the United States as we know it.
Their claim that everything America was founded on and built up has to be dismantled as well as erased from history is a stance that can only come from an anti-American mindset. A viewpoint that even the most uninformed, apolitical American would find appalling.
But we can't stop at criminal justice reform, or policing reform for that matter. We are not merely fighting to tear down the systems of oppression in the criminal justice system. We are fighting to tear down systems of oppression that exist in housing, in education, in healthcare, in employment, in the air we breathe. We must recognize that these systems of oppression are linked. As long as our economy and political systems prioritize profit without considering who is profiting, who is being shut out, we will perpetuate this inequality. So we cannot stop at criminal justice system. We must begin the work of dismantling the whole system of oppression wherever we find it.
Yet it has become the battle cry of the far left as they march down the streets of America, chanting things such as no Trump, no wall, no USA at all, to just straight up saying, death to America.
Death to America! Death to America!
They have shown they do not want to discuss anything. They are not here for debate. We are told to give in to their demands or else they will not stop.
I said if this country doesn't give us what we want, then we will burn down this system and replace it, all right? And I could be speaking figuratively, okay. I could be speaking literally.
There can be no compromise. Whether they are burning down buildings or pulling down statues, whether they are burning American flags or pulling down Trump signs, there can be no compromise with people who threaten violence and even openly act on it. This is not a movement that seeks democracy, but seeks anarchy for political change.
I'm at the point where I'm ready to put these police in the fucking grave. I'm at the point where I want to burn the fucking White House down. I want to take it to the senators. I want to take it to the Congress. I want to take the fight to them. And at the end of the day, if they ain't gonna hear us, we burn them the fuck down.
They are the very definition of terrorism. There's a reason you do not negotiate with terrorists, for to give in to their demands simply gives them license to continue. Trump has said he wants to declare Antifa a terrorist organization. People have pointed out that Black Lives Matter is also a domestic terrorist group. Who can refute these claims when these movements, both of which have almost become indistinguishable from each other, openly declare their hostile intent to dismantle America and overthrow what they declare to be systematic racism that is oppressing anyone that is non-white?
We are going to dismantle the system of racism and oppression so that racist behavior, biases, and unfair treatment of Black and brown people is no longer tolerated.
The ideology these groups spout is so antithetical to what the average American believes, there's no chance for an honest middle ground. They tell us men can become women because biological sex isn't real.
Basically, it's not correct that there is such a thing as biological sex, and I'm a historian of medicine. I can unpack that for you at great length if you want, but in the interest of time, I won't. So that's a very popular misconception.
They tell us 2 + 2 = 5 because the math we currently use is a part of Western imperialism and isn't the only way of knowing. They tell us what our human rights are, be it housing, healthcare, education, or anything else they declare to be a right, while they denigrate our actual human rights that are protected by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. They tell us America was founded on racism, to preserve racism.
But let us not forget that in the DNA of this country, Chris, is racism. And the fact that that is coming to the surface now, we as a country have to deal with that.
Because white people invented racism. Therefore, you can't be racist towards white people.
Racism against white people doesn't exist, and it literally never has. The entire concept of race was created by white people. When you begin to study the historical facts, you understand that this entire system of racism is white supremacy.
They tell us the things we know to be objective truths are in fact a part of whiteness, thus not compatible with non-white people. That it was in fact invented to uphold white supremacy while oppressing marginalized people. Is it any wonder the country is being divided? As more and more institutions, corporations, and political parties capitulate to these beliefs, either because those in charge believe them to be the growing trend of the country, or because they are being infiltrated by people who literally believe them, their insistence to push these ideas on the majority of the American people, who woefully reject them, is continuing to create an ever-growing amount of animosity.
You think we're going away? We're not leaving. We're not leaving. We're gonna stay being out here every fucking night.
Further leading to normal Americans feeling they have to comport to these concepts or be labeled as racist bigots who just want to maintain their own privilege. When combined with hordes of anti-American communists marching into residential neighborhoods, shining lights into windows, chanting things like, "Wake up! Wake up, motherfucker, wake up! Wake up! Wake up, motherfucker, wake up!" Who would want to compromise with such despicable behavior? No ethical person would, no matter how uninformed they are. Meaning any attempt to bargain with the individuals who believe this nonsense will be viewed as a weakness to exploit, as anything short of total compliance is seen as blasphemy. This concession is only a door to be leveraged until they have you on your knees confessing your privilege and sin. So they use their influences in social media, legacy media, and even political positions to intimidate anyone who does not want to fall in line. With threats of censorship, doxing, calling your employer to fire you, calling your bank to cancel your account, to anything else they can do to disenfranchise you. For the price of your obstinance is nothing short of your total expulsion from society.
Trump can be and must be expunged. The hate he has triggered, the Pandora's box he has opened, they will not be so easily destroyed. So, let us brace ourselves. The task is twofold. The terrorist Trump must be defeated, must be destroyed, must be devoured at the ballot box. And then he and his enablers and his supporters and his collaborators and the Mike Lees and the William Barrs and the Sean Hannitys and the Mike Pences and the Rudy Giulianis and the Kyle Rittenhouses and the Amy Coney Barretts must be prosecuted and convicted and removed from our society while we try to rebuild it and to rebuild the world Trump has nearly destroyed by turning it over to a virus. Remember it, even as we dream of a return to reality and safety and the country for which our forefathers died, that the fight is not just to win an election, but to win it by enough to chase, at least for a moment, Trump and the maggots off the stage.
So while radical far leftists berate people online as well as attack people in the streets, Democrat politicians, be they in office or not, continually pander to these fanatical ideas, be it because they genuinely believe it themselves or because they think Twitter is an accurate gauge for American cultural shifts. Either way, their blatant denial of what is going on is nothing short of treacherous, as they repeatedly claim the violent riots are due to Trump and his supporters, refusing to condemn the looting and burning of American cities.
So I hope this is the end of this hearing, Mr. Chairman, and that we don't have to listen to any more of your rhetorical speeches. Thank you very much. I'm leaving.
Well, I appreciate the, as always, kind and uplifting words of Senator Hirono. And I would also note that throughout her remarks, she still did not say a negative word about Antifa, nor has any Democrat here. They instead engage in a political game where they depend. You're welcome to say something negative about Antifa right now. Okay, she declined to speak, so that is the position of the Democratic Party. I would note also that of the 7 Democratic senators who spoke, not a one of them apologized for or denounced multiple Democrats calling law enforcement officers Nazis, stormtroopers, and Gestapo, to be fair. I have not heard the word Nazi, but stormtrooper was Nancy Pelosi and Gestapo was another Democratic leader.
The vast majority of which are happening in Democrat-run cities. To even some claiming Antifa and the riots are a myth.
It is true. There's violence across the whole country. Do you disavow the violence from Antifa? That's happening in Portland right now? There's riots.
That's a myth that's being spread only in Washington, D.C.
About Antifa in Portland?
Yes.
Sir, there's videos everywhere online.
With all of this being done essentially as a means to hopefully causing Trump to lose the election, as they think the chaos would be laid at his feet with the help of their allies in the legacy media. This is why there can be no compromise with these groups or anyone who advocates for these ideas. Not only are they all-encompassing beliefs that demand you submit to them in every facet of your life, they are erroneous principles that use deception to trick people into believing they are being morally righteous.
Care if somebody decides to loot a Gucci or a Macy's or a Nike, because that makes sure that that person eats. That makes sure that that person has clothes. That's reparations. That is reparations. Anything they want to take it, because these businesses have insurance. They're going to get their money back. My people aren't getting anything.
Leading them to think they are justified in destroying property, harassing people in the streets, to even attacking or outright murdering anyone that disagrees with them. This is an ideology that has trained those that believe in it that everything is problematic, that everything is racist, that everything that has given them the benefits they take for granted is the product of a white supremacist patriarchal system explicitly designed to oppress anyone that is not a straight white male.
Everything is sexist, everything is racist, everything is homophobic, and you have to point it all out.
These ideas and those that support them must be opposed at every turn. For no arrangement will be good enough to satisfy their deranged dogmatic worldview. They must be told emphatically no whenever terms such as white privilege, diversity, inclusion, equity are referenced. Basically anything involving social justice, intersectionality, or critical race theory. Factions such as Antifa and Black Lives Matter must be recognized as the domestic terrorist groups they are. With anything else that's been infected by this nefarious ideology either purged of it or itself purged from society. Be it feminism, LGBT groups, colleges, corporations, governments, to even churches. As this ideology is in essence a mind virus that needs to be expunged, having even been described as such by some that teach it.
Published a paper in a small academic journal called Generos, Multidisciplinary Journal of Gender Studies, titled Women's Studies as a Virus. I'm not going to tell you about this, I'll just show it to you. Here's their abstract. It's a little long. Because women's studies radically challenges social hierarchies and lacks a unified identity and canon of thought, it often negotiates a precarious position within the modern corporatized university. At the same time, women's studies offers, by virtue of its interdisciplinary, critical, and infectious structure, cutting-edge perspectives and goals that set it apart from more traditional fields. This paper theorizes that one future pedagogical priority of women's studies is to train students not only to master a body of knowledge, but also to serve as symbolic viruses that infect, unsettle, and disrupt traditional and entrenched fields.
It is with good reason that President Trump has signed an executive order abolishing this pseudo-intellectual dogma from the federal government. As this non-theistic religious Marxist revolution against America takes its grievances to the streets,
You can't stop the revolution! You can't stop the revolution! You can't stop the revolution! You can't stop the revolution!
using force to demand political change,
Because we're fucking done with people like you.
I have an opinion.
honest, law-abiding Americans are beginning to take more of a stance in imposing it, using their own First Amendment rights to protest against it, as well as using their Second Amendment rights to protect themselves and property from it. As more of these incidents grow, both groups declare their sides lawfully and even morally justified, regardless of what actual video evidence shows. So when one side is telling you what is happening and what to believe, contrary to what your very eyes and ears observe, when reality itself proves their claims wrong, yet they stubbornly balk and say reality should conform to their delusions, there can be no accommodation for such reprehensible conduct.
We're going to have to blow up the entire system. And you know what we're going to have to do?
No, I don't know.
You know what we're going to, yes,
Yeah.
what you're going to have to do?
You just got to vote.
Honestly, from what your closing argument is, you're going to have to get rid of the Electoral College.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. You can find more of my opinions over on my Minds page. You can also find me on Parler and Twitter. Links for everything will be in the description, of course. Thanks again, and God bless.